with a project like this, one of the things that it desperately needs are ambassadors. And they're people, of course, that can think of their particular area of expertise and then help a lot of this to roll out on different pieces of country. And as that's occurring, then of course it's enhancing and helping this to flow better and expediting it as well. And I can't see any thing more than just being a person who's dedicated, interested, and obviously has the time and energy to put into working with us.
So I'm sure there's plenty of people out there across Australia.
Got to be. Has to be. And we go from there. Hi folks, my name's Noel Nannups, and what you're looking at here is a map of the songlines of the southwest. Now these are the primary songlines, and they travel, as you can see, quite extensively across the whole of the southwest. The secondary ones belong to the local people in the areas that they're in, and what you're looking at there is no less than maybe 9 different clans, and you can see that it extends right across all of them. And because of that, it was necessary for me to talk to lots of Aboriginal people in the southwest, because I'm connected to here through my ancestral lineage, and therefore you're looking at photos around the edge here of some of those families and the contribution that they made to this as well. And altogether 88 Aboriginal elders have given some information about these songlines and where they go, and obviously what travelled on them, the songs, the dances, the stories. And I always say to people, it's not the world according to an individual, in this case me, Noel Nannup. It's the world according to the collective. Lots and lots of people know and understand the importance of the songlines and how they, interact and fit into the social order of the people that moved across this landscape, harvesting the resources and, of course, honouring the spirituality or the spirit, the creation spirit. And as you can see, some of them follow watercourses, and in most instances definitely go through catchments. And it's quite extensive. It's taken many years to do this, but at the same time it's been a labour of love, and I'm just so pleased that it looks like it's going to be something that's going to prove to be well worth it, and numerous people will be able to contribute to taking this to another level and grow it into what it needs to do. And of course, personally, I'm just guided spiritually by it, and I just continually allow that to happen. And I hope that you gain something from it as well. But one thing, if I know and understand people, is once they see one of these installations, they're going to want to see it more. So they'll start visiting them. It's a bit like, if you put in a mountain bike trail, wherever they are on the planet, they've got to do that mountain bike trail. Or if you put in a walk trail, a long walk trail, they want to do that trail. And you'll have these people coming from all over the globe. If, diseases permit, wanting to do this and see these installations everywhere. One of the components of that is to be able to get them to understand their humanity, their connection to the world as humans, and not just to place and also to their fellow human beings. And we've got that chance of doing that.
When you enter the sculpture, when you walk in through a pathway which represents the humans within that evolutionary tree, that phylogenetic tree. The pathway in, that person that enters represents the whole of humanity and stands there with that clade of those selected species that are important to the traditional owners and the conservation organizations that are working there and are also working, I hope, quite closely with the Threatened Species Commissioner to ensure that there's a broadening of awareness of those species that they might not be evident in the landscape because they're almost extinct. And they're the ones that we really have to ensure that their gene stream keeps flowing.
Sure, and that's where what Marley does comes into it. And by making sure that all the different biota is represented with the trails inside that, like a flower. It's just so beautiful. Yep, so, yeah. I know in this building we'll be speaking to the converted, but we've got to get to them beyond this. And that's what Dandy Cooling's about. We'll nurture this through until 2029. And in the interim, whatever can be done through what you do and Marley does and Don. It's yours. Go for it.
Thank you so much. It's just an incredible mission of purpose that you engaged on.
I got excited about this in 92 and celebrated then. You know, I don't get excited much anymore. It's just because I could see it then. It was a vision. But I had no idea to what level it would be. I just trusted in that. And it wasn't until I heard of you people that I now realise. No.
It's only Carol that was saying it's got to be a tourism trail. Everybody's got to tour this and see this because each sculpture is a different community of species. It's a different songline. It's a different part of the story.
Amazing, isn't it?
Oh.
It truly is amazing.
And ensuring that we use the
What
art.
about that photo there? Look at that.
Wow.
That was taken from a tree up at Wollonga National Park. The dancers were dancing.
Wow.
And a young fellow took the photo for us. And look how it came out.
Isn't that extraordinary?
The spirits were there.
Wow.
Right with us.
Wow. Extraordinary.
Yeah. They were all painted up and everything.
Wow.
They're dancers, humans. They look like spirits. Yeah. It was so good we had to put it there. That's old Jubarch up the top. Jubarch is a plant, and it has one thin stem coming right away about this high, and under the ground there's tubers like a potato or two, and that was his potato, Jubarch. We're also looking at this project called the Social Impact Group, and being part of the Social Impact Group, we develop a Aboriginal-led component to it, and from that component then we would actually run a festival, and during that festival the opportunity for people to come to a summit that we'd hold during the festival. It's usually 2 days, and we don't ask people what do they want us to say for them. We tell people we have a platform, come and get involved and tell us and tell whoever your story and how you want to be involved. So it's not about imposing or speaking on behalf of, it's about all of us getting together. So we called it Dandu Cooling. And Dandu Cooling means walking together. It's the best way to describe it. And walking together will obviously take us to a future. We're focusing specifically on 29, which is our bicentenary. And if we go back a few years to the 175th, Aboriginal people were excluded from it, any celebrations. Not that any of our mob wanted to be celebrating anything, because it was the beginning of the end when they came in the tall ships. But at the same time, it is what it is. And as we face the cold, harsh reality of that, then we can ignore it. And if we do, then every time we open our eyes, it's still there. So we have to work with it and do the best we can. And therefore, I think this is the best way to go about it, to make sure we're not excluded, because we're not. When it all boils down, Aboriginal people are not anti-development. What we are is anti-exclusion. Don't leave us out. Let us be involved. And in this instance, with Danger Cooling and the Social Impact Group, we're actually leading the way for others to follow. And I think that's important. I know it is. And it wasn't until I met your good self, Ben, and the work that you'd been doing, that I then realised, and that breath that was still hidden in the lungs there could be expelled, because I then knew exactly why I did this. Because that installation you put down there in the Parongarups, Borong in our language means totem. So you put this right at the totem place. And totems are just so important. I mentioned a lot of them about these songlines. They're all about totems, stories, songs, dances, and art. And those installations just went off like little lights. And I could see them and envision them everywhere, and linked, via these songlines, with the amazing stories, the incredible biota that exists, whether it's, plants, animals, birds, trees, reptiles, even if it's amphibious, it still has a place. And we can do justice to that now. We can really do justice to that. And your choice of words in relation to a gene stream, every time I think of that, I just feel that I now understand the depth of this. And it's real. And I'd been celebrating the fact that, I could produce this, and to be able to do that, I had to meet all of these Aboriginal people and sit down with them and talk to them, and not just harvest the knowledge and race off with it, but leave it behind. And Pop Angus Wallam here, who's since passed on, and rest in peace, Pop, he was so excited about it, and he helped me with an incredible amount of knowledge of this area here, where the salt water comes down in through natural, tributaries, and then the salt water sits down on the bottom, because the fresh water is so light, it sits on top of the salt, and then you have this ridge running across here. That's why this line's so straight. Exactly where it is pretty close, and from there to the ocean you have sweet water running all the way. The salt is left behind, and then you start to understand the land at a greater depth. And then knowing that the central hub of our totems has the first installation. Wow. Yeah. But then there's the spiritual essence. It shouldn't be a surprise. It should be automatic and easily understood. So, looking forward to this now, the little fires starting here, there and everywhere, taken off. Because these go right across the country. There's no need to stop at the border. That's the Pope's line. But they're a long time ago. No borders in the Aboriginal world.
The Bunya People's Aboriginal Corporation at the moment.
Queensland?
Yeah, working on the next one. That'll be opened in December.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
So from the Parongarups to the Bunya Mountains.
Wow.
Like
Oberon's near there, isn't it?
Mount Oberon.
Oberon? No?
No.
There's a place over there called Oberon. I remember it because it's over on the other side.
Yeah. The director of the National Museum, he had a look at this, Matthew Trinker. Yes. And Matthew said, these are like nodes, aren't they, running across the landscape? And it took me back to Auntie Carol in 2017 when she showed me your map.
Yeah.
She said, let's make sure that we find a way to ensure the songlines aren't forgotten, but let's go further than that and let's connect that with all the conservation work and make sure that it's about caring for country and teaching people about what we're learning about these environments.
I love that concept of, having an academy where we can train our people to connect back, but also interpret and translate the language of the land to the visitor. That's fundamental to everyone understanding Australia better. It's not here to just plunder and chop down all the trees and take them away and dig up all the ground and take away all the minerals. It's way deeper than that.
Absolutely.
And
to use
this will help them understand.
Yeah. To use these sculptures as songline sculptures, also as gene stream sculptures, together as gene stream songline sculptures that are portholes into this academy that you were talking about. Each place is a node of the broader learning, which is continent-wide.
And then people can see the layers and layers and layers that Aboriginal people have of knowledge of this place. And then you bring science into it. And then, of course, you put more and more layers, taking you back further and further and further, and bringing forward the gene stream of those ancient plants, the forerunners to what we see now. Those ancient trees and birds and animals and things.
You can imagine it back, if we go back to the period of time that we call the Silurian period, over 400 million years ago, those first plants coming onto land, you can see the streams in your mind, and they're greening. The plants are going up those ancient streams, greening the streams as they grow up them.
Wow.
It's an amazing vision, and to think that those really ancient fossils from that Silurian period are found here in Australia. The connections between the first plants on land and the plants of our time and supporting those animals through the first topsoil. That's an incredibly deep story that we can access through the gene stream songline sculptures. There's so much to learn.
On this landscape, where this map goes, it's all based around a story called The Kerras of Everything in English. And that's the original map I did. Well, not quite. The original was in a book form, And I'd just open the page up for each local government that I was travelling through and put the lines through it. I put 3 different colours, and that represented the different stories and songs. Because you've got Yonga the kangaroo, Waich the emu, Nyingan the echidna, Carter the goanna, and you've got the bronze-winged pigeon we call Woodar, Ngao, which is the malleefowl. So they're all part of this as well, and that's well before we were settled or colonisation, using the nice soft passive words. And now I think truth-telling's coming to the fore, so they'll say invasion, and we shouldn't be shy to use that word because I think it's applicable.
And you've gone further now with this as well? You're talking
about the same distance to the north of this.
Wow.
If we cut it off at just south of Carnarvon, which is 4 or 5 hours drive north of us, at the normal speed limit of 110 kilometres an hour in a car, and extending across, of course, the same. And we have one trail that we followed from the city here of Perth all the way out to north of Beacon, and people walked it every step of the way. It's just over 500 kilometres, and that trail goes all the way to Uluru and beyond, so I've mapped that as well. And I've taken that across through the Northern Territory and into the central southern sandstone belt in Queensland and Carnarvon Gorge, and then of course following the Warrego River south of there till eventually you get to Brewarrina and into the Darling River, and follow the Darling River all the way down to the Murray, and then that trail comes back via the Murray all the way into South Australia, and then via the ocean back to us in the west. Caterpillar dreaming is what you would call it in English, and each language group of course has their own word for the caterpillars.
I was wondering, is that a way of helping our conservation efforts to ensure that we keep the gene streams flowing by giving people, if they don't have them, this totem species somehow to connect them?
Steve Hopper and myself have been talking about that for a long while.
Right.
And we're convinced the Perth Arts Festival, International Arts Festival, people, that we should look at the trees and the plants and birds and everything. And so they got on board, some forward-thinking director of that.
As a 4-dimensional model,
yeah.
So your 3-dimensional space plus the one of time, each species becomes a totem, but we don't need to wait, say, for the funding for all of the sculptures to start everywhere in building the digital models that then offer all of the totems of all of the species.
Yeah.
And anyone that wants to be involved can have their totem, can select a totem species, and from that they could get a direct feed from it. This is how many individuals we know of are left in the wild. These are the conservation groups. These are the traditional owners that are working to protect this species. Here's all the information for how to engage with your totem. And so through the gene streams, song lines, sculptures, they would be becoming aware that they not only can say, yes, they support this, but they can have a totem species through it as well.
Which will connect them. It's what I call a social investment rather than anything else. And when you have that social investment, you'll look after it. See, when you have a totem, you have to know everything about it. And that's what we know about our totem. Never ceases to amaze me, and that's why I have great comfort in just being immersed in who I am. what I'm here for. And then knowing that something like this excites other people and brings in their talents and their skills, and then whoop, up we go. And then as it goes on, another lot comes along, up it goes again.
Exactly.
Good, better, best. Never let it rest until the good is better and the better is best.
So I think by giving people their totem species, that has to be something where they can see that their totem species, along with themselves, is growing through time, and they can interact with that totem through field work, through getting out, getting onto country and caring for country, to move further towards bringing those species back into balance, bringing them into the green, bringing those totems into a place where, thrivability. It enhances their ability to thrive within the tree of life. We can talk about something that my mentor talks about, Peter Elliott, the futurist, talks about preferred futures. He said the best way to live in a preferred future is to build it. Mm-hmm. He said that to me at Warburton when we were talking about the Gene Stream songline sculptures. And the thing here is that when I was out at Mulligan's flat with a group from ANU, we were looking at how do we talk about bringing an ecosystem back into balance? You know, these fluid ecosystems that Professor Adrian Manning was talking about.
Just north of Canberra.
Yeah, and so we had a number of the species in the red, and we said, okay, in the future they're going to be in the green. Mm-hmm. All right, we're going to move them back into balance in this software. We've said we're going to do it, and when are we going to achieve this by? So we can do that. We could put dates in, and then we say, okay, if that's the goal and that's the vision, how are we going to action that? And how do we grow it from here, do you think? Do we need more ambassadors? How do we reach out to the rest of Australia? And
you're right.
How do we do it?
Ambassadors. It's got to be through ambassadors. The planet's screaming at us for help.
If you visualize the Extinction 6 event and compare it with the other big extinction events in the past, it doesn't look like the other extinction events. Something strange is going on. There's this sense of this species that are in bloom within the tree of life. They're our domesticated species, they're the weeds, they're the ferals, and they're, of course, ourselves. And then amidst that, you have most of the other species, many of them in decline. So visually it looks different. And one of the problems, I think, is that we don't all have that vision. We haven't all seen it. Yeah. And when I was with Gondwana Link, with Ani Carroll, with Professor Steve Hopper, Nathan McCoy and others, spent quite a lot of time there. I went to the Stirling Ranges and I came across Banksia montana, of which there was less than 30 individuals left. Mm-hmm. And when I went through the wheat belt, got to Wave Rock, and then it was on my birthday, and I made myself a promise there'd be no more artist residencies until I built Gene Streams. Yep. Had to go to Australian National University for them to say yes, because the head for the Centre for Higher Education, Learning and Teaching said at ANU we do things that have never been done before. We're going to build this thing. And it's a visual literacy tool for understanding ourselves within the tree of life. So from ourselves and our own physical location, we can look out and see the rest of life. So we built quite a lot of it. And then, of course, COVID happened. We built the foundations. And so, but Keith Bradbury and Arnie Carroll said, this model, let's build this one. Let's turn this into that sculpture that we spoke about. Yeah. And we can use that and spread that out across the song lines to mark them out and to mark out the ecology that grows through it. And we connect them together. I'm wondering now how far we can go into the broadening of awareness when people come to the sculptures. How can they learn more about their sense of visual connection? How do we visually connect them through the sculptures to the plants, animals, the deep time stories of the land? So I'm hoping that through Gene Stream, I know I've got the tools to do it, but I'm hoping that through this project we'll be able to grow that awareness, because the whole planet's missing that, I feel. We don't understand ourselves within the tree of life as a four-dimensional thumbprint of life on Earth. And that's what I believe, that by bringing these awarenesses together, we hopefully can unfold that awareness across all of humanity.
So you're thinking of holograms and so on.
I'm thinking of a system by which someone, say, visits the sculpture and they have that experience and they leave with an awareness of the map
Through
of
their
the song
handheld
lines. Yeah.
technology.
And through the sculpture itself and their handheld technology working together.
Mm-hmm.
But when they leave, they take the awareness of the sculpture with them. Or if they come to support our project wherever they be in the world, there are ways in which we can follow through with what Carl Linnaeus said all that time ago when he created a classification system to try to understand how we group species together in this sequence of higher and lower clades. But he said something that he never visualized. He said that we all have an address within the tree of life. And when I heard that, it was a what? Like I couldn't see it. What was he talking about? How can you have an address within something you can't see? But you can, through gene streams and the connection of the gene streams with the song lines and putting it into a public artwork that unfolds across the nation. I believe that we can provide that to people. We could do it. We could. And all that social media stuff out there, it's all timeline based. The song lines, the seasons, the gene streams, these biogeographical dynamics that is always fluctuating across the continent. I think an awareness of that and a broadening of making sure that gene streams keep flowing, because when a gene stream stops flowing, the species becomes extinct. So ensuring that that idea of custodianship is something that, is something that I think that is a powerful wisdom that the traditional owners have, and we should all be picking up on that now.
Nyunga is a male. And if we talk about a female, we're talking about Yok or Yoga. And our neighbours to the north and to the east called us the Bibbleman people. And Bibi means breast. And each granite outcrop that's in the southwest is a little ecosystem. And it's like a breast. And there's just so many resources around that, or all of those rocks. And there's numerous rocks.